Welcome to Care Indeed 10th year anniversary celebration, a decade of impact. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Vanessa Valerio, your Chief Operating Officer, and
I'm Vanessa Munoz, Event and Communications Coordinator here at Care Indeed.
And we're so excited to have you with us to celebrate our 10-year of impact, changing home care through kindness. Dear God, we thank you for allowing us to touch people's lives for the last 10 years. Please bless those we come into contact with daily and allow us to be a blessing in their lives. Please continue to help and guide us to run Care Indeed in an honest and efficient manner. We pray for our leaders that they will be blessed with wisdom and clarity, that each decision they make is centered around fairness and justice. May they have the discernment to know the difference between right and wrong. We pray that through your mercy, we will continue to serve our clients and our community with a heart full of compassion. May each interaction be centered around authenticity, genuine connections, and true service. Let our business be of great service to others, flourishing through decency, honesty, and respect for our colleagues and our clients. Please help us stand by our values whenever we face temptations and adversities. Thank you for everything you have provided us so generously for the last 10 years. And we hope you will continue to bless us, not only Care Indeed, but those who really need your blessings and your mercy. God, please grant each one of us the inspiration, the motivation, the right direction, and resources to continuously succeed. Help us stay focused on our goals and to reap honest rewards for the benefit of all. Amen, and with infinite gratitude.
Since 2010, Care Indeed has had the honor of serving thousands of seniors, families, and partners throughout our community. Whether providing quality home care and home health services, developing innovative products like our CIVR virtual reality training, telecare, CI community, and more, Care Indeed has continued to push the envelope to redefine the way home care is delivered. Dia and Vanessa's story is an amazing one. Starting with just one employee and a dream 10 years ago, they've grown the organization to now encompass 3 offices in the Bay Area and more than 700 employees a decade later. Let's take a look at their journey and how they're fulfilling their mission, creating a better world for seniors and caregivers.
Well, first and foremost, if I didn't have people like you and Carolyn protecting me and helping me, I couldn't live here. I'd probably have to go into someplace like assisted living, which I would hate. I like living in my home. I want to stay in my home. My mind is still very, very good. I just have physical limitations. I need help running errands. I need help taking a shower. And I want to feel dignified.
Not only just a family.
The high quality of care, the commitment to a higher standard. I don't see that anywhere else in this industry, in this location, and I don't see another company as committed to the smaller and finer details to make sure such a high standard exists.
The family that we have here, the people that we work with, the people that are always open, and of course the owners who gives you the voice and always encourage you to speak up. I think that's very unique compared to other companies.
I would say that we are unique because what we do truly matters. And I did not understand that until my very first interaction with our clients. And I heard the just appreciation, the genuine trust in us that we were providing excellent care to their loved ones. So I would say that it is the feeling that I have when I leave the office every day, knowing that what I did that day made a difference.
I've never worked for a home care agency, especially in this industry that is continuing to push the envelope, redesign the way home care is, innovative products like our CI-VR, CI-Go, CI Connects, Telecare. We're truly like a tech home care company, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. And it's all to make our clients' lives better, to improve the quality of care, and to really address their needs.
I think one of the most important things is to connect with the clients and listen to them. Most of our seniors don't have anyone to sit and spend that time, to give them that time and listen to them. The amount of compassion that is important for them to feel safe, secure. And that is what the goal is. With each of my visitation with the clients, I try to spend as much time as possible and just to be there to listen to how they feel.
The innovativeness. Our CEO is constantly striving to make a change in how elders are empowered. It could be anywhere from the training the caregivers get to the equipment we put in a house to make sure that they are assisted but in an independent fashion.
Trust is very important. They have to trust that we are going to deliver for them and that we will be taking care of their clients the way they want to take care of them.
Well, it's like you are working with your own family because the whole entire office, the people that works there, it's just like a big happy family. Of course, having said that, family always have a problem, but you can iron things out. And Dee and Vanessa really have a very good heart. Not a lot of people knows that they are both caregivers before, until they started caring Dee.
With a steadfast vision, courage, and unquantifiable amount of sacrifice, Vanessa and Dee built Care Indeed in 2010. 10 years down the road, a home care organization has become a business that it is. Respected, renowned, and trusted. Care Indeed anchors its successes on its people and core values, such as integrity, honesty, kindness, and empathy.
For Care Indeed, what I could say about the innovations and what we do is to find the true meaning of what our clients need. Once you identify solutions for them to make their life better, you're gonna ask yourself, is this still something that you'd like to provide to them?
I think one of the things that Care Indeed is slowly being known for is the innovation, because we all know that senior care, there's always this evolution. It's all ever-changing. And if we don't keep up, then we're gonna be left behind.
And also when it comes to innovating our services, it always goes back to, is our seniors getting better? What exactly the type of care they need during this time or in the future?
One of Care Indeed's vision is definitely to be one of the top leading home health providers of the community. Something that not just, again, about money in the bank, it's mostly a reliable home care service where people trust us, our seniors trust us, that we are able to provide a reliable service, a compassionate service.
For me, I think perfect example of this is what we're building currently at Care Indeed, and that is a total integration of solutions of what our clients need in the future. We're in this together. For our partners, truly grateful for all the learnings, for all your support, and also for your continuous feedback that you gave to us. The indebtedness of how we felt being supported by all of you, that's what I wanted to share to all of you, and the true grateful heart that I feel on this 10th year. We will not be here if it's not for you. So thank you so much for being with us, and hopefully you'll grow with Care Indeed as well.
I want to thank you. I wish God will continue to bless us for more years, and thank you for everything.
Years of changing home care through kindness.
Although 10th year has definitely been one of the hardest for all of us, it's also brought to light the importance of kindness, resilience, patience, and true grit. Our commitment never wavered. We pushed harder, making sure our clients, families, employees, and our community were all taken care of, even as the world seemed to change in the blink of an eye.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura Lee, and I am the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Care Indeed. I'm so glad that you're here celebrating with us today. I'm honored to introduce to you our two expert speakers today who are also part of our advisory board here. Our first speaker is Dr. Wendy Thanasi, who is trained in emergency medicine at Stanford and Yale, and primarily works on national tuberculosis policies with various governmental and non-governmental agencies. She brings perspectives from emergency and geriatric care at the VA, Stanford, and from a career in ensuring the occupational health and safety of workers. We hope you enjoy her presentation on COVID-19, caution, connecting, and caring.
I'm absolutely honored to be here. I appreciate the invitation to be part of this wonderful event for a wonderful organization. My topic today is COVID-19, caution, connecting, and caring. I was initially going to speak on the original invitations about like the science of COVID, but I know that we're all pretty tired of that. And what I really was interested in is sort of how we can get past the science and get back to some semblance of a normal life and normal connections. So bear with me, and I will talk to you for the next 15 or 20 minutes about my experience as a COVID transmission MD, what I've learned, what I tell our healthcare workers, but more importantly, some of the science of love and connection and how I think they can overlap. And so for disclosures, you had a background intro from Ms. Lee. I appreciate that. I'm a recent advisory board member for Care Indeed. I don't have any financial interest in any companies or products that are mentioned here, including the company itself. Well, 2020, so here we are. We are shackled and bound and restrained by this COVID-19 global pandemic epidemic, and yet we are also lost. There's this New York Times Magazine cover that I thought was so poignant, called The Lost Years. They actually did 4 different covers on this particular week, and I just liked this one. You see the loss in the eyes of this boy who I feel like is on a school bus and maybe should be going to school, but he's behind a shirt and behind a bracelet and behind a mask and behind a window, and looks to me like he's looking out on the world, as we all are, wondering, like, when am I going to get back out there? When is it going to normalize? How has this happened? And I certainly don't have the answers to all of those, but I know that we're all feeling a lot of the same things that he is. We've all suffered quite a lot of losses this year through this global pandemic, and most particularly the loss of lives. And for anyone in our audience who has lost a loved one, my heart goes out to you. We're not over it yet, but we're definitely getting better at managing it. We've also lost school and we've lost work. People have lost their jobs. And of course, there's this physical component to our lives where we lost hugging each other and touching each other. We've lost holding hands. We've lost dancing. We've lost all sorts of physical interactions that we used to have. And I think sort of on an even bigger scale than that, we've really lost a lot of our connection to each other. I think that is across particularly our United States. And in many ways, I feel like our country has lost its connection with itself. And when it was the leader of science in the world, when it was the exemplar of how to handle strife and burden, when it was the welcoming melting pot of the world, so much has changed. So how are we going to get back to connecting when we're behind all these barriers, and when those barriers are what is supposed to keep us safe? And more importantly, why does it matter? Why, as a physician, am I bringing it up to you? Well, there's this great paper, as well as thousands of other papers, that really show nicely the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences is one of the most prestigious medical journals there is. And there's this nice article. You can go look it up anytime you want. I put the references throughout this talk. But there's 2 decades of research that show absolute causal relationships between strong social relationships and mortality, which is death. So more social relationships, longer life. It's actually longevity. And this analysis that they talk about in this paper is multiple dimensions of social relationships, whether it's familial relationships with your siblings, whether it's romantic relationships or social connections. There are nunneries in the world that have the longest living people on earth. And that's felt to be not the abstinence of behaviors, but in fact, the social connections they've made with their sisterhood. And not only do people live longer, but the association is with robust health. So these social connections are as important as any medical connection there is. And conversely, the data shows that the lack of social connections is associated with vastly elevated health risks, and that the negative effects of social isolation actually exceed that of clinical diseases like diabetes. So if you had to choose one, in this case, you'd rather be an older person with diabetes than socially isolated, which makes the system that we're in right now particularly concerning. Here's an interesting article this summer in the New York Times. The title of it was "Continued Bans on Nursing Home Visitors Are Unhealthy and Unethical." You know, the blanket bans that were placed on in-care facilities, they all have different names now, community living centers or SNFs, skilled nursing facilities. These bans were blanket bans on all visitors, and they really failed to capture how friends and family are critical to our loved ones' care. The caution in having visitors in these places is understandable, but caregivers, they make sure that patients eat and that they can communicate their needs and they have appropriate hygiene care. And oftentimes these visitors are the first to see changes that happen. And patients without visitors are well shown to have a decreased quality of care. The Medicare standard, the CMS on May 20th, actually changed for these skilled facilities, May 20th, and said that if these facilities didn't have any COVID for a month, and if they had appropriate PPE, personal protective equipment, that they could reopen to visitors. Otherwise, they'd only be open for end-of-life care. And so many of these facilities have not reopened and are still closed and only open to end-of-life. And this picture is just heartbreaking. It's better than nothing, but it's heartbreaking. One quote from this newspaper article is, the sudden disruption in residents' contact with loved ones has caused notable declines in residents' cognition and function, depression, as well as anguish for family members. And I know people out there in the audience will have family members in these places and are, as my friend said, who works at Care Indeed, grateful that there are limitations so that they can stay safe. One has to hope that within those facilities, the caregivers are providing the care and the stimulation that's needed by our loved ones who are at home. And that's exactly what Care Indeed home health givers give. They act as friends and family for those of us who are too far away from our loved ones to give that social interaction ourselves. So I think home health care is a real blessing in this setting. So I'm going to jump to that science of COVID that I mentioned, and I'm not going to be super sciencey, but I want to just kind of myth buster. Let's talk about what you're hearing about in the media, what is happening on the news, I'm just going to go with true and not true, and you can fact check me later, but all the facts are so conflicting that you might just kind of have to trust me on this one. So here's one of my main things. Okay, what is with this social distancing? It shouldn't be social distancing. That is inaccurate terminology. That is not scientific terminology. It is harmful. That term arose prior to us even having mask wearing. It happened really early, like in March. And that term, social distancing, increases isolation. I like this image above where social distancing is you got somebody in a mask and they walk by you and the question is, well, do I say hello to them or I turn away because I'm going to be socially distant? Do I give them the stink eye if they walk near me? I really feel like it's created a very negative atmosphere when the correct terminology should have been physical distancing. And it's what we've changed all of our signage to in our hospital. It's the language that we're now used to using in our hospital. It's physical distancing. It's not social distancing. And physical distancing is particularly important indoors and in small areas like locker rooms and break rooms or cafeterias. That's when you need to be really away from other people because that's when they're taking masks off. But physical distancing outdoors is also not scientific. So don't stress if somebody walks past you in one direction or runs past you or crosses, or, if you're in a grocery store and you're checking out and you're not, completely physically distant from somebody. If you're both wearing masks, just be mindful of that. And I'm going to come to it again in a minute, but let's remember that we need to make social connections in this time of physical distancing. And we do that through making the connections that we used to make, but even making more of an effort to do that, to look at people with their masks, look at them in the eyes, smile, laugh, tell a joke, cherish each other, and remember that you're increasing your own and others' life expectancy when you do so. So I kind of mentioned this 6-foot recommendation. So this is another thing that came out before masking. The 6-foot thing is not science. It is a general blanket statement that came out to speak to the lowest and most common denominator across the country. The deal is COVID-19 is still a droplet disease. The droplets, my spittle, our spittle, when we talk or when we yell, if one were to have COVID-19, those carry the virus. It then lands on a solid surface, and the next person who touches that surface within a close time frame can pick it up and transfer it hand to mouth. It is still not an airborne disease. Airborne in the scientific term, that it's not floating around like smoke particles just did when they blanketed California. They are carried in the air as long as my droplet can fly, which is generally thought to be, with normal speech, approximately 2 to 3 feet. So when the 6 foot thing came out, the idea was kind of another scientific standard, which is that you do one standard deviation beyond safety. So if one standard is 3 feet, then one extra standard deviation would be 6 feet. So it's just a blanket. It's kind of this, as this little blurb says, an outdated dichotomy model that isn't really the science. That said, some level of distancing is important. And this British Medical Journal, the BMJ, is a really good journal. I have other ones here. You have to be really careful what you read. These pre-printed ones in journals that are not peer-reviewed, these papers that come out that talk about just one patient are irrelevant. But good journals like the New England Journal and BMJ and Lancet and the Proceedings of the National Academy are ones for you to refer to. So anyway, this was a study in 149 countries that implemented physical distancing. And interestingly, the paper uses the term physical distancing. And it shows that there is a decrease in, there is an overall reduction in COVID transmission. They show a relatively modest one at 13%, but remember, when you're going between 149 countries and they all have different levels, the point is that you do want to maintain physical distance from people who you do not cohort with. That's for sure. That means don't get in a car for any prolonged period of time. Mass public transportation like airplanes, where the air filters are really good, are actually looking to be pretty safe. Public transportation was actually called out in this paper as being safe, buses and airplanes. But I have already seen transmission happen among our employees in minivans and in cars, and certainly in break rooms. So again, physically distance, but please no stink eyes, no social demeaning of people who walk by you or are standing at the checkout counter, closer than the big red X on the floor, because this is more about mindfulness than a particular metric. So can we avoid COVID? Yeah, again, I'm talking about this because this is just a virus. Like, it's this little thing. I totally admire it because it found a way to sweep the world, and this little tiny RNA particle has really found a way to propagate itself. But it's just a virus. Like, we get it. You can protect yourself from a virus with the same things that we know: distancing, masking, like we've been doing for so long, and hand hygiene, which we'll get to. So masks work. I love this guy over here with his coffee filter. I thought that was pretty funny. So masks work, and they work best when both people are wearing masks. We have had transmission in our hospital when one COVID positive patient is not wearing a mask and the healthcare worker is, and we've had it in the reverse. So I really prefer that both people, if there's a chance that there is COVID infection, are distance as best you can, and the mask type should be a double layered cloth or surgical, or the KN95s or the Korean N95s that are out and they're more available now to people. You should not use masks with exhale valves. You don't have to use these ones with big old filters put inside them and stuff. There's no science that shows that a surgical mask versus a KN95 actually makes any appreciable difference. If a N95 is fitted really, really well, it could be 1 or 2% better. But we've been wearing surgical masks in hospitals forever with patients with infectious diseases. So yeah, wear a mask. And this, I know this is a horrible picture, but I thought it was really interesting. These are actual plague doctor masks from the 1600s. And in that long beak, they would put herbs that both smelled good, but that also were felt to be like medicines for the doctors who were wearing them, caring for these plague patients. What I thought was interesting, and the reason I included it, is that the eyes were covered. And so they didn't necessarily know germ theory, but they actually covered their mucous membranes, all of them, which I just actually thought that was very interesting. I'm sorry it's a little bit of a disturbing picture. Certainly the mask evolution of what we have now is better. So looking here at some old ancient Roman art, this is a picture of a physician, and he, I guess in this one, is steaming the utensil he's about to use. This is long before germ theory. That's not sterilization, but there has been a concept of being clean in medicine for, hundreds, if not thousands of years. So certainly hundreds of years. So there's this other little sign from Texas that I loved. My hands are consuming more alcohol than my mouth. And I think that early in the pandemic, you might have seen a lot of like empty alcohol cartons on the side of the road. But now we should probably just be moving on with our lives and continue to wash your hands, using hand sanitizer, making sure you get in between the gaps in the fingers, getting the backs of the hands, and really avoiding touching places with bare hands that are touched by lots of other people. I think of gas pumps and obviously door handles and the washers on the cars. So what you can do in that case is you can wear cloth gloves, because cloth can't transmit the virus, only solids do. So you can sit on someone's couch and you're not going to get the virus. You can wear their shirt. You can, any sort of material object. Cardboard is not a problem. People were really worried about the things they bought in grocery stores. Mail, paper doesn't transmit it either. But solid things do. So those vinyl gloves, you could pick it up and touch your mouth inadvertently. But I don't think anybody's going to put a cotton or wool glove in their mouth. So wear gloves when you're out. Use a lot of alcohol sanitizers during the day. Okay. I'm sorry to run too long. I'm going to try to be quick. So I want to bust some myths. What's this whole asymptomatic spread? That's another inaccurate COVID thing. In medicine, this is pre-symptomatic spread. We don't know about asymptomatic. And someone could argue with me and talk about, prisons and cruise ships, but I'm really talking about our general life. When what happens is we know that there is pre-symptomatic spread, and that's the scientific term. So at 1 to 2 days before symptoms, people are highly infectious. So here's the blue man who has COVID. And then the next red man is the person who got sick with symptoms. And the red circles I have there is the 1 day before the red man got symptoms. He, because these happen to be men, it looks like, passed it on to the yellow guy. So 1 day before symptoms, that is pre-symptomatic. They don't have symptoms at the time, but that is not asymptomatic, just so you know the terminology. And that's, almost half the transmission is about the day before. 30% of the transmission is the first day of symptoms. So the day before, the day people become symptomatic, and the 1 day after are their highly infectious stages, which means if somebody had COVID 2 weeks before, you don't have to worry about it. I have a friend who couldn't get a dental appointment because she had COVID 3 months earlier. Once you are not in the infectious stage of COVID, you are not infectious. One is not infectious. They are not infectious. So there's this tight window of about 10, can take it out to 14 days. But, and I have seen two people on the day 14 who seem to have gotten it. But by and large, it's about day 3 to 7 when really people get sick. I've never seen asymptomatic spread. We've tested thousands of healthcare workers who are front facing with COVID people. We screen them. They are never positive if they're asymptomatic ever. So that's what we do when we know that somebody was exposed. We take them then out of the public. Like if your housemate has COVID, that's why the members of the house have to stay home, because they get exposed and 3 to 4 days later, they are infectious, even though they don't feel their symptoms till another day after that. Okay, this it has words on it, but I'll be quick. Is reinfection possible? So I mentioned my friend who had COVID in March. Like, should we be scared that she's going to get it again? Well, there's like 26 million cases in the world so far, and there's only 2 convincing reinfection cases. One was from Hong Kong and one was from Nevada. And we know that they were reinfections because they sequenced the genomes, and they were like the little pink COVID up there and the little green COVID up there. They just were not the same virus. They had enough differences in their genome to conclude that they were different. And so there's 2 proven cases. So that, I would say, at least is very infrequent, of 26 million so far. Maybe there'll be a few more, but it's certainly not cause to worry. And in fact, I bring it up because I want it to reassure us that once people are positive, they kind of enter the safety zone, and we don't have to worry about getting it from them or them getting it again. Super quick, is COVID mutating? This is a big topic when people are talking about vaccines. It does mutate, but we don't have a vaccine for HIV because it mutates like wicked fast, but COVID does not. So there is this one mutation on the spike protein that's really interesting. We noticed it. It was noticed. I didn't notice it, but the people in charge noticed it back in January and February, and then it took off, and now it's almost 100% of COVID infections that are sampled worldwide have this one mutation. It's in the spike protein that you hear about, which is the one that we'll make a vaccine against, but thankfully it doesn't change the spike protein enough to harm what would be a vaccine. And what it's done is it's mutated to actually make the infection spread more easily. It helps it get into the cell where it's going to replicate. So remember, you come in contact with somebody with COVID, you breathe in that cell, and then the cell, little spike protein gets into your cell, and then it turns your cell into a virus machine, and that cell bursts and a bunch of virus comes out, and then those infect other cells, and then those make virus and they burst. And that's why it takes about 5 days from when somebody was exposed to when they actually get sick, because their body has to build up enough virus. And that's why if you think you come into contact, don't get tested the next day, because it's going to be negative because your body hasn't made enough virus. You have to wait 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 days before you get tested to have an accurate test result. So the great thing about it is it doesn't make people any sicker. So it doesn't cause worse disease. It just spreads more. And it, since it took over and it's so well liked by the virus, it actually is going to be one of the new targets for vaccines. So last bad slide, I think. How bad is COVID? Bad. I mean, we've lost almost 200,000 lives in the United States. 42% of those have been in the long-term care facilities. That's a huge number. The overall fatality rate for COVID is actually less than 1%, though. It's closer to 0.5%, which is good. It rises in the elderly. In the over 80, it's the mortality rate is about 1 in 15, which is much higher. But in children, just so you know, like, it does not cause death. It can't. Out of 26 million, you can find a few, but the fatality rate in children is 0.0016%. So they're safe. And that actually has to do with the cells in their lungs actually not being mature enough to take in the virus and really host it. So that's kind of interesting. It's their ACE2 receptors aren't formed. So then hospitalizations, about 1 in 5 over 80-year-olds were hospitalized, and about 1 in 100 under 30s. And I should have told you that this is a big study from Lancet that was done in China, and it was done in April. So some of these numbers will have changed. They will have gotten better as we've learned about the disease and how to treat it. Okay. Final question, when is that vaccine coming? AstraZeneca's vaccine, you might have heard, just got pulled from its phase 3 trial. There was, I think it was a single case, but of a very rare and a very serious neurologic disease. And that kind of reminds you of flu vaccine and when it used to cause Guillain-Barré back in the 1970s. So that one is probably going to have to be shelved. The Pfizer one is in phase 3. There's 3 stages of testing. Phase 1 is the first level of trial where the vaccine is given to a small number of people and seen whether it's safe. A phase 2 trial is the dosing stage, where it's given to a slightly larger number, say it's 100 people, and 30 get one dose and 30 get a higher dose, and then 30 more, 33.3 get the highest dose. And that's a dosing trial. And then phase 3 is when you've decided it's safe and you've figured out your dose. It now has to go out in vaccine trials to tens of thousands of people. Like, they have to be enormous trials for vaccines to actually prove a difference, because still in the United States, 96% of the country hasn't had COVID. And so it's not easy. You have to vaccinate an absolutely enormous population to be able to show a difference in whether people are getting it or not. And there's like 5 others, like Moderna and these others, that are getting close. But the reason I bring this up in particular is because just a week ago, 9 pharmaceutical executives signed a pledge not to accept the early use authorization that the FDA and President Trump are pushing. Remember, they pushed through this hydroxychloroquine and this convalescent plasma, and they were both disasters. Hydroxychloroquine actually increased mortality. There were plenty of warnings from the clinical community not to do it, but it was pushed ahead by government officials and not scientists, and it didn't go well. So imagine these pharmaceutical executives who have these vaccines, they stand to make jillions of dollars on an effective vaccine, but they're wise enough to know that if they do harm, it's going to be horrible. So they signed a pledge not to accept emergency use authorization. They agreed to what the FDA is requiring, that the phase 3 trial has to show a 50% reduction in disease or in fatality. And that's a reasonable bar. The flu vaccine is usually about 67% effective, so 50% is certainly better than nothing. Back to the beginning and just to the last couple of slides. So now you know about COVID, how it's transmitted, how you avoid getting it. It's just a little virus. We can do it. We can stay away from it. And we can keep your loved ones safe as well. And knowledge is power. And there's Cupid in that picture. So we're going to move to love. Cupid there has all the power. We can and we must connect in this time. 2,000 years ago, Plato said, the God of love lives in a state of need, like hunger and thirst. And I think this is so powerful. Love lives in a state of need, like hunger and thirst. It needs to be constantly replenished. People need to be praised and loved and cared for. And that love is built deep down inside us. It's these neurotransmitters in our brain. It's age old. It probably goes way back to survival of the fittest and the need to create offspring. We have 4 neurotransmitters. They behave differently with different types of love, but they're all deep in our brains and they're built in. So I want to show you a 30-second video, if I can, of something that really impressed me a few weeks ago from Nova, and it's about dogs, dog love. Okay, so just 30 seconds, bear with me. Sorry.
Dogs. And the scans are a so represent what dogs' brains do when they're anticipating food. It isn't showing very much happening, which means that on average the dogs probably speaks to is the fact that praise
praise just as much as food. Some dogs love praise.
So that is not relevant to my dog. He definitely loves food more, but I thought it was, I think it's just a lovely physical depiction of what happens in our brains when we care for each other. This is my favorite image of the year. Not a good year, but a beautiful image of a parent and a child. And it's an fMRI overlay, functional MRI, showing the concordant areas of their brains that light up, even in the baby, the same areas when they are loved. So I think this is the final-ish slide. It's a balancing act, and I'm just going to read you the sentence I wrote because I'm so impressed with this company, but whatever company you're with that's providing home health care. I said, I don't have a dog in this race, but I really believe in people staying at home and being cared for when that is possible. So Care Indeed's mantra is that they are the heart of home care, and that I really think that says it all. This is an organization that understands that now in particular is a time of profound loneliness and isolation for many, including our own loved ones. They are the people who dedicate their lives to care and to adding that heart to your homes. The presence of caregivers who spend time connecting with your loved ones can be as important as food and water and medicine and masks. So there's a scale down here that shows that we find that medium. We have to move from the red zone on the left of social isolation and loneliness and the lack of connectivity to the middle, where we can be safe with just some simple interventions from COVID-19, and we can avoid the isolation and loneliness. So I'd like to see us all get there. Final slide. So let's not allow ourselves to be socially distanced. Let's physically distance and wear our coffee filters and allow our hands to absorb some alcohol, and let's connect and care indeed. And that's all I have for you, and I appreciate your time. And my congratulations go out to the Care Indeed staff for building really a marvelous community of hearts and souls. And thank you all, and be well. And let's hope 2020 goes away pretty soon. Take care.
A huge thank you to Dr. Thanasi for that amazing and thoughtful presentation. We're so glad and honored to have you with us today. Our next speaker is Tammy Anastasia, who is an Alzheimer's and dementia consultant and educator, and she has a master's degree in counseling, a certificate in gerontology, and a certificate in end of life. She is also a private practice in Los Gatos called TAMS Alzheimer's and Dementia Support, where she provides one-on-one family support, guidance, and strategies to help make the dementia journey easier on the caregiver. She also works with people with dementia and provides cognitive and physical stimulation. In addition, Tammy facilitates 3 local dementia caregiver support groups and has partnered with Elder Consult, conducting monthly educational workshops. Without further ado, here is Tammy and her presentation on COVID self-care strategies.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for participating and celebrating in Care Indeed's 10th anniversary. It is an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this celebration. My name is Tammy Anastasia, and I am an Alzheimer's and dementia consultant and educator. I'm also a health and wellness counselor, and I also facilitate 3 local dementia caregiver support groups. And I do also provide monthly educational workshops through Elder Consult. Today, I'm going to discuss the emotional impact COVID and sheltering in place have had on us. And I'm also going to provide you with some COVID self-care strategies. So I'm going to begin today's presentation by going over some of the psychological aspects of COVID and sheltering in place. One of the first things we need to keep in mind is that we weren't prepared for COVID and sheltering in place. It occurred suddenly. We had no way to prepare psychologically, emotionally, and physically. So we're still in the midst of trying to sort it out and understand basically what happened in such an abrupt, short time. So that's one thing we need to keep in mind from a psychological perspective, is there was no preparation. The second thing we want to keep in mind is that the uncertainty as to how long this is going to last keeps us in limbo. And because we're in limbo, COVID and sheltering in place are bringing to the surface a lot of underlying emotions and feelings. Some of the most common underlying feelings and emotions that are coming to the surface are the following: loneliness, feeling isolated, depression. I have a lot of private clients sharing with me the grief and sadness they feel because of the lack of social connection and physical contact. Others have been sharing with me the loss of independence they feel, and there's also been a lot of fear, anger, frustration, and anxiety. So these are normal feelings given the circumstances that we're dealing with. So the key now is, how do we cope with these feelings and emotions? And one of the best ways to do that is to empower yourself. So there are several ways we can empower ourselves. One of them is by being proactive versus passive. The other thing you want to do is focus on the things you can change and the things you can do. Often what happens is we get caught up in putting a lot of time and energy into the things we do not have control over, and you want to shift that focus and put your time and energy into things we have control over, into the things we can change and the things we can do. So one of the things you want to start doing is to do things that give you a sense of independence and give you a sense of social connection, as long as we do them within the safety guidelines. The other thing you want to consider doing is limit the exposure that you have to negativity. In other words, you might want to consider limiting your exposure to the news. And because right now, we need to put our time and energy into coping with this pandemic, with sheltering in place, in a way that enhances our emotional, physical, and mental well-being. And that negativity can interfere with that. And another way to empower yourself is to put into practice the COVID self-care strategies that I'm going to discuss. The CARE in self-care is an acronym, and I'm going to go through what each of the letters stands for. So the first thing is the C. C stands for two things. The first thing the C stands for is to comfort yourself. When we're in the midst of a crisis or a pandemic like COVID, there is a tendency for us to forget to do things that are very comforting. And we need to make a conscious effort to do things that are going to comfort us, especially during a time where it's very stressful, it's very unsettling, and it's been very, very difficult and challenging. So I advise a lot of my private clients to take a daily shelter in place time out and make a conscious effort to do things that are comforting or nurturing. So once a day, you want to ask yourself, what can I do today that would be comforting or nurturing? And some client examples are they're gardening, journaling, some are taking time out to meditate, for prayer, some are going for walks. Whatever brings you comfort, you want to get into the habit of doing something once a day. The second thing the C stands for is to connect with others. We need to initiate connecting with others. Don't wait for people to contact you. Don't wait to reach out to other people. You want to initiate that. We need to feel a sense of connection. And however we create that is up to us. So you could do it in several different ways. You could call friends and family, do it by telephone. Maybe you want to write some letters, or maybe you want to send some cards. That's one of the first things I did, is I sent out about 20 cards to people who are special in my life or important or play a significant role in my life. And I just wanted to write a little note to let them know I was thinking of them. And as a matter of fact, that's something I'm going to do again this month, because it makes me feel connected, and it makes me feel good that I'm extending a message to them that I'm thinking about them. And it's not about them reaching back out to me. It's the fact that I'm doing something that makes me feel connected to other people. And it can be done, like I said, in many different ways. Maybe you want to think about participating in a volunteer project, or maybe you schedule some virtual social events. However you need to make it happen, it's up to you to initiate that. And I want to encourage you to initiate that and not wait for other people to do that. The A in the CARE acronym also stands for two things. The first thing the A stands for is acceptance. And I want to be very clear, by acceptance, I am no means trying to downplay what we're going through. Actually, it's quite the opposite. What we're going through is traumatic. What we're going through is dramatic. And so if we stay caught up in what was, we aren't going to be able to make the changes that are necessary given what is. So one of the things you want to do is accept that sheltering in place most likely is our new normal. We may not like it, but it's something we have to accept so we can make changes that are going to make the best of the circumstances that we're in. The second thing you want to think about is accept that our lives are different than before COVID. Our lives are extremely different. I don't know about you, but my whole schedule pre-COVID came to a halt, and I've had to make a lot of changes and modify a lot of things so that I can make this time as meaningful and as important to me as I can possibly make it. Acceptance also, again, I'm going to go back to focus on the things you have control over. A lot of times we get caught up on the things, again, that we have no control over. Put that valuable time and energy back into you and put it into the things that you can control and the things that you can do. And by accepting our current circumstances is going to allow us to create new habits and engage in activities that are important to you, that give you a sense of achievement, give you a sense of accomplishment, and give you a sense of satisfaction, but more importantly, engage in activities that give you peace of mind. The R in the CARE, the A in the other second A in the CARE acronym stands for activities. So I get a lot of calls. I don't know what to do with myself. There's so many restrictions. There's so many things that I can't do. So I thought what I'd try to do is help people out. And I came up with 5 different activities, 5 different categories of activities that you can choose from. The first category I titled hobbies. You may want to think about getting back involved in a hobby that you used to do, or maybe pick up a new hobby. The second one is called fun, leisure, and entertainment. And I'm going to highly recommend that you do something once a day that is joyful, once a day that makes you happy, that you do something to offset the negativity, to offset the restrictions that have been imposed on us, that once a day you find ways to do something that makes your heart sing, something that makes you smile. So one of the things I do on a daily basis is I have 3 things. There's Leave It to Beaver, there is Little House on the Prairie, and I Love Lucy. Those were shows that I was raised on, and once a day I make sure that I watch one of those daily because they make me smile, they make me feel good. Another third category is exercise and physical movement. And when I'm talking about exercise and physical movement, it's not about walking 10,000 steps. It's not about getting your heart rate up and sweating. It's simply moving your body, moving your muscles, moving your joints, and getting the blood circulating. And it could be the gentlest of exercises. It could be doing exercises in a chair. It could be marching in place. Maybe you just want to do some stretches. But it's really, really important that if 2 or 3 times a week, you could just do something very simple that would move your body. Moving our body and stimulating our mind are the 2 things that increase and improve our quality of life the most. So when I'm saying physical movement and exercise, I'm thinking of gentle movements, just again to get the blood circulating through your body and stimulating your muscles and your joints. And the 4th category I called social engagement. Here again, you're going to want to initiate connecting, and there's different ways you might want to do that. Maybe we schedule in-person social distancing visits or outings, or maybe you want to do Zoom or FaceTime. I have clients that are doing virtual happy hours, and I have some clients who are playing virtual bingo. But here again, it's going to be up to you to initiate that social engagement. And the 5th category I titled virtual activities. And that, again, so many things we're not going to be able to do in person for a long time. So we're slowly starting to offer things virtually. Music concerts, tours of museums, and you may want to attend a webinar. There's so many different webinars being offered. Or maybe it's that you play some virtual games or crossword puzzles. I personally do virtual crossword puzzles every day, at least 2 or 3 times a day. The R in the CARE acronym stands for routine. It is really, really, really important that you try to establish a routine that is consistent. Again, prior to COVID, I had a certain routine, and once COVID hit, again, my whole routine came to an abrupt halt. So I've had to figure out ways to modify and create a new, what I call shelter-in-place schedule. And some of the things I've done is I created some new rituals to replace the things I no longer can do. And now I filled those gaps and put some what I call sheltering-in-place rituals in place so that I can now follow a schedule. And what do I mean by a schedule? A consistent schedule. I don't mean rigid, but that you get up and you go to bed around the same time every day, and you do the sequence of activities in the same order, and that you do them around the same time of day. And you can change what the activity is, but for example, you get up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock is breakfast, maybe 10 o'clock you go for a walk, 11 o'clock is lunch, 12 o'clock you go for a drive, but somehow there's sequence and there's structure to your day. And studies show when we follow a consistent routine, it provides stability, it provides predictability, it gives us a sense of normalcy, and it provides structure, but more important, it gives us a sense of purpose to our day. And the benefits are, it decreases anxiety, it improves our sleep, and it also increases productivity. So think about what can you do to get back on a regular schedule so that it's fulfilling, one, but it also gives you a sense of purpose. The E in the CARE acronym stands for 2 things. The first thing the E stands for is to expand your support network. When I'm working with clients one-on-one, one of the first questions I ask them, especially during this time, is what kind of support system do you have in place? And often people will share with me, they have 1 or 2 people that, that are very supportive, but at some point they tell me, but I don't call them as frequently because I don't want to burden them. As the saying goes, we are all in this together. We're all being affected by what's going on, and we all have concerns, we all have frustrations, we all have our own fears, and we need to support one another. So I want to encourage you to expand your support network. So if you need to talk to somebody, if you need a shoulder to cry on, that there are people that you could reach out to and not feel you're going to burden them. So your support network could consist of family and friends. You may want to join a support group. You may want to contact a professional counselor like myself, or a therapist, or maybe you want to speak to your doctor, an MD, or a geriatrician. And maybe you want to think about calling a spiritual guide, or possibly a spiritual leader, or again, participating in some spiritual community. And for those of you who are alone and taking care of a family member who has some sort of cognitive impairment or has had a stroke and is very limited, and if you need help, I'm going to encourage you to reach out and utilize outside resources. Early on, March, April, May, I wasn't quite sure whether I should recommend that, but now that I know that this is going to be longer term than what we expected, I know all of the resources that I refer to and that I work closely with are going to great lengths to follow a preventative protocol. So if you need help, please reach out, ask for help, bring in some in-home care services like Care Indeed, or possibly think about hiring companion care. But we're going through a lot as it is. You're going through it even more if you're taking care of someone and you don't have that support. So please reach out if you need it. And I highly recommend that you make your support network part of your weekly schedule, that you have built-in systems of support that you can get every single week. I happen to have a friend in New York. We talked maybe, twice a year. Since COVID has hit, we talk every single Saturday night at 7 o'clock without any fail. And we've been doing it every single week since March. So build in the support network so it's part of your consistent schedule. The second thing the E stands for in the CARE acronym is to establish an emergency plan. God forbid something should happen to you. And when I talk to people about what kind of emergency plan do they have in place, people will often tell me, oh, I have an emergency plan in place as a couple, and they have an emergency plan in place if something happens to their loved one. But if you live alone or you're taking care of someone with cognitive impairment, I want to highly recommend that you sign up for a medical alert or life alert program. Because if something should happen to you, it's likely that your loved one who has dementia or has a brain injury isn't going to know to call 911. And if you live alone, we're not going to know something happened to you. So at least sign up for the bare minimum, and that is if something should happen to you, the proper authorities can be notified and act on your behalf. The other thing you want to consider doing, especially now, is to make sure your medical and legal documents are completed. If you haven't started that process, now would be a good time to start the process. If you started the process and you haven't completed it, now would be a really good time to complete those forms. And you also want to make a list of medications. If there's an emergency, it's going to be really, really beneficial to you and the medical people that you have a list of all the medications that your loved one is taking, that you're taking, or anyone in the household, because that's going to be one of the first things they're going to want to know. So you'll simplify a lot of the crises if you have this list already available. And the other thing you want to do is you want to write down the name of an emergency contact person, but be sure it's somebody who is local. I've been involved in families in a medical situation, and their emergency contact person lives 5 hours away, or they live in another state. You want to have a local person to be able to represent you, to be available immediately on your behalf, whatever is needed. And I would advise that you take that list of medications and you write down the local name of a contact person and you put it in an envelope and you stick it on the refrigerator, because you want it easily accessible, easily available. And a lot of times when EMT people come into a home, one of the first places they're going to check for documents is going to be on the refrigerator. So this concludes the care strategies, and I hope you will find them beneficial. In closing, what I'd like to do is to read a quote by Wayne Dyer, but I would love it if you would please read this quote with me out loud. So on 3, we'll read this together, and I hope that you'll read it out loud. 1, 2, and 3. Peace is the result of retraining your mind to process life as it is rather than as you think it should be. I want to thank you all again for celebrating the 10th anniversary of Care Indeed. And I want to send my best wishes to you and your family. Please take care of yourselves, and I wish you the very, very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Tammy and Wendy for your amazing presentations. If you would like more information on our speakers today, please send us an email at info@careindeed.com. We'll also be sharing the recordings with everybody and posting it on our blog. So up next, we're excited to show you some of the innovative projects and programs that Care Indeed has been working on and that will be available to you soon.
Started in this company in a different department. I always found that when I first started that we always spoke about innovation, and usually those types of things mean programs that are being used, like new ways to send an email or share information. To be part of products now is very exciting for me, and find new ways to take that model and raise the quality of life for our client in that medium.
Since the pandemic began, Care Indeed has partnered with some incredible speakers in the healthcare space to bring resources to our community virtually. You can find these on our YouTube channel. One of our next speakers on October 1st are Deborah Meyerson and her husband Steve Zuckerman, who have an incredible story and again personify perseverance in the face of adversity. And there'll be a short video about Stroke Onward and Mission.
Congratulations on 10 years of great work.
And thanks for including us in your celebration.
In 2010, Deborah Meyerson was a professor at Stanford University, working on issues like gender, diversity, and identity.
I'm really happy to be here. I spoke at a Net Impact conference.
She was also a happily married mother of 3, healthy, fit, and athletic. Then, a severe stroke nearly killed her, leaving her paralyzed on the right side and with no speech at all.
Deborah.
My name is Deborah. My name is Deborah.
For 3 years, Deborah pursued every avenue for therapy possible. Despite great progress, she could not return to her job as a professor, mostly because of her ongoing speech challenges. That led Deborah to ask, who am I now? Drawing on her background studying identity, Deborah and her family began to explore their identities, and the emotional journey they now know was critical to rebuilding a rewarding life in the face of disabilities. That was an integral part of the 5-year process to write Identity Theft, Rediscovering Ourselves After Stroke. More than a book about Deborah, Identity Theft is built on academic research and interviews with more than 50 survivors, family care partners, and professional caregivers. While writing the book, Deborah and her husband, Steve Zuckerman, heard time and again that survivors and their families get little help navigating their emotional journeys. So they have created a nonprofit called Stroke Onward to bring awareness, develop resources, and ultimately change caregiving systems to embrace the emotional journey as an integral part of the recovery process. Deb and Steve are adapting their life personally and professionally to continue enjoying what they love, and by building Stroke Onward, trying to make the stroke recovery system better for the millions who will, unfortunately, be forced onto that path in the years to come. Please join us to learn, collaborate, and create a better healthcare system together.
To learn more about Stroke Onward and to join us on October 1st, please visit our website at www.careindeed.com/events. Now for a few words from our founders, Dee Bustos and Vanessa Valerio.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. My name is Vanessa and
my name is Dee Bustos. How are you guys? And thank you for joining us today's celebration. First and foremost, I would like to thank each and everyone here for being part of the last 10 years of Care Indeed. Thank you. As Care Indeed CEO, I would like to take this opportunity to tell you on behalf of our team that we will continue to strive to be better each day. We will continue to be open to listening what you have to say and to constantly look within our organization. We would like to share that we are currently redesigning the home care programs for you to continuously provide you with a better and more reliable service. I cannot wait to share with you what the details very, very soon. We promise to work very hard every day with ourselves, our leadership, and our management to be the good role model for our team by being honest, fearless, and brave. Again, thank you. And I would like to extend our sincerest gratitude for the trust you have given to us and the Care Indeed team for the last 10 years. Vanessa?
Well, again, my name is Vanessa, and I would like to say thank you to all our beloved clients. Thank you for the trust and for allowing us to be part of your lives for maybe the last 10 years. And also, this year has not been the easiest time for us, but you made it happen. You made it possible for us and for us to inspire us, to motivate us not to give up. Our commitment to all of you is to work on our leadership on a daily basis, to always be honest, to work and to provide service that is centered around your care and not because of profit, not because of money. We ask for your prayers during this time that we will be able to provide and recruit a lot of qualified and good workers so we can provide you the best care possible. Thank you again from the bottom of our hearts on behalf of Care Indeed family. Thank you for not leaving us during these challenging times. We are so excited to be celebrating 10 years with all of you. God bless. Anyways, now, recently we sent out an email regarding some testimonials from our clients. And we have selected one lucky winner. And her name is Diane C. So sorry I cannot mention the last name for privacy reasons, but Diane C. Hold on, right here. So it says here, here's her testimonial. My Caroline is very special to me. She is an extended part of my family. I have called me Auntie D. She is excellent at managing her time with great skill. She knows and remembers things I forget. When to change my bed, do my laundry, check my freezer, everything. Without her and Care Indeed, I could not live independently and would be in assisted living. Thank you, Diane C. And Diane C, here is what you're gonna get. Hold on.
Wow, that's heavy.
So I will personally deliver this to your home before the end of the month. I know I'm scheduled. This is some gift basket for you, and I really hope you will enjoy it, okay? Keep you warm.
All right. Congratulations and thank you, Diane C.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We thank you for the honor of allowing us to serve you and our community for 10 years. Cheers to the next decade.